All right, welcome everybody. Hey, welcome to the stream. Uh, let's see here. We're gonna wait a little bit before some other people show up, but I might as well just talk about how this works today. I'm gonna be going through three different shots, so I want to congratulate Alan, Ben, and Yulia. I'm gonna go through their shots today. Hopefully, I have time to get through them all. Um, I'm going to try my best, right? On a couple of them, I might actually go into the Maya file so we can kind of see under the hood and see how to, maybe I can try to fix some things, try some different things out so you guys can see what it looks like. Um, but hey, anytime. Oh, hey, Peter, how you doing? Peter says morning. Yeah, anytime you want to just write in the chat. Hello, Sherlum. Good to see you. Some familiar faces, names. Yeah, I wish I could see your faces too, but just thanks for being here, guys. I have a lot of fun doing this with you, and I hope it's helping you out. Um, so yeah, and we got hey, first time chat, Barry Wookie. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Um, yeah, and I'm gonna start with Alan's shot in a second here, but I wanted to say if you see over in the upper right corner right now, it says you can hover over that box to play some animated GIFs. When I go to this different view, let's see here. I go to this view. It's actually, if you hover over the right of my picture, I think that's where you can um, do the animated GIFs if you want, just to make people laugh and have some fun. Underneath the video, if you're on a computer, underneath the video, there's some audio things that you can play. You can play, the quack sound, the duck sound cuts through everything for me, so that I know if someone needs my attention. If you have a question, go ahead and quack at me. It's all right. Hopefully you don't overdo it, but yeah, I'm gonna just go ahead and get started, just because we only have an hour and I got three shots to get through. So, hey, Alan. All right. Hey, we're working on Alan's shot right now. Good to see you. So this is here. I'll just hit play so you can see it. It's a pretty cool shot. It's like the Avatar Airbender stuff. And that's awesome. Great job. It's fun, and there's some things we can do to just kind of take it to the next level, right? And so let's just start from the beginning. I'm going to just point out the main things that I see. I mean, there's probably lots of nitpicky things I can get into, but just the biggest things that I can see. And I notice a lot of times when my leads give me notes, um, they're not going to give me notes on every little detail, but sometimes their notes will open up my brain to see even more things, right? And so I'm hoping that just by giving you the broader picture notes, that when you get back into your shot and you're hitting those notes, you'll start to see some other stuff as well. So one of the things is, if you see his hand here, the way that in this style of rendering, it's kind of, his hand just looks like a mass, right? And so you really got to think about silhouette and stuff. So I would just, in this pose here, uh, keep a space between, because you've got it here where you can see a space between the fingers. So when he turns to this angle, it would be good to see his thumb too. His thumb kind of gets lost. So maybe just angle the hand a little bit differently there, so it just doesn't look like a block, you know? So here's one major thing that's on this shot, and it happens in a lot of people's shots. I do it too. It's hard as an animator. You're not always thinking You're thinking about the action, but you have to think about the character's point of view too, right? And in this one, I don't know. I guess I don't know much about this guy. Maybe he's a mind reader. Um, I don't know much about Avatar, Airbender, and stuff like that. But he seems to be reacting before something's happening. And so you always want to give your character time to react, right? So he's like starting to dodge things. So you see he closes his eyes and starts to get out of the way before this guy even attacks him, right? So it almost looks choreographed like a dance. So you want to look out for that. And it happens throughout this shot. Um, but before that, too, to really make this guy's, so the gray guy here, to really make his shot look bigger. See how his arm is straight there? It should be more bent right before. So so the straight here is fine, and then bring it in bent. Here, let me get my pen. Um, maybe you can have it bent in more like this, so that it goes from a bend to a straight right there in the attack. So that way you can really feel bend, straight, right? And then I would just wait a little bit longer on the other guy for him to react and then dodge it, and get right out of the way. So that would be good. And the same with this. You see how he starts, the guy on the left starts to go up. His head just starts to go up before the other guy does anything, right? And so at least get the gray guy started slightly before the other guy starts to bring his head up. And then, so same thing here. He's starting to duck before this guy swings, right? And so even just a little bit longer, let him stay standing up. And then, because then the duck can be really fast. Like you can do some quick timing. And at the same time, you can do quicker timing with the chop, right? As he's bringing his hand across. Let's see. Because that's good. You have a gap in spacing here, but I think you could do even more. You could probably get rid of this pose, this one right here, and it could just go from here to straight, right? So it's kind of bent to straight completely, and you'll really feel that. And as long as you're slowing out at the end, like you are here, that'll work fine. Like a huge gap in spacing will be fine, and you'll feel it. Now this part is pretty cool. I think a cool thing you could do to make it better is if you think about the physics of this. He's falling backwards, right? I'm talking about the guy on the left down on the ground. He's leaning back so far that he would fall back. It looks like he's putting his hands down to catch himself, and then these things shoot out of the ground. Problem is, so if that happened to you, you were already starting to fall backwards and something pushed you up, especially at that angle, you would do a backflip. And so that would be a fun thing to do here, is maybe just have him completely do a backflip and then land, right? Because it's a little odd that his feet kind of go forward and then they swing back like that. That would be hard to do, and especially if you're off balance in the air, to just all of a sudden swing you would really have to, if you're up in the air, you'd really have to shove your body forward to get your legs to swing back, right? So if you don't want him to do a backflip, I would change him so that he's not off balance back here. Just keep him balanced. So then when he gets shot in the air, maybe his feet don't come out in front of him either. Maybe they come out a little bit more underneath him, and then he catches himself. It'd be cool to have one foot land before the other. They kind of, it's almost like that here. But it would be great if it was like boom, boom, one foot and then the next one. So it's not happening at the same time. Cool. And then, this ground pound. This is cool. To really sell it, you can get rid of this pose here. So just like with that chop where we wanted to just hit hard, you don't need to slow into a hit, right? So you have this big wind up, and then you have a gap here in spacing, but then it kind of slows. This pose is too close to this pose, right? So what we could do is just go bam, hit the ground. And since you have camera shake, it should be okay, because that kind of, you could also maybe get a little bit of reaction out of his body because he's hitting the ground so hard. Maybe his, there's opposing. I don't know if you've seen some of my posts, but there's opposing action. So if the arms are hitting the ground really hard, his butt might go up a little bit and then come back down, just to re-emphasize that pound, right? So like, get rid of this pose so you can go from here to here, and then maybe have his butt go up a little bit and then come back down. But like I said, the camera shake kind of covers that anyway. Another thing to think about, I don't know if you guys have heard of the wave principle, and I'll see if I can draw it. But the wave principle is like you can go from a reverse C shape, like let's say like right here, we want his body to be more in a reverse C shape, right? So his arms would be back, like really hanging back, right? And his spine is curved back. And then when he hits the ground, you see it's a C shape, right? And then the arms are down. So that's awesome. But what do you do in between that, right? It would be nice. I'll just show you with the wave principle over here, on the left. I'll just draw it. So like if you have a reverse C, and then let me turn on ghosting. And then you want a C going this way. Here, let me do more extreme. Right? The pose in between, it should, the bottom part should favor the second pose, but the top part should favor the previous pose. So you get like an S curve. So now if I turn ghosting off, you have reverse C, S, whip. So that's how a whip works, right? So the breakdown between a reverse C and a C is an S, right? It's like this, in this case, it's like a reverse S, right? So, and I say S because it's kind of shaped like that, right? So it's like a backwards S. Yes. But the reason why that works is because what it is you're offsetting. So, if you've seen some of my posts about offsetting curves, that's kind of what you're doing here. If this is the spine and this top part is the head and the arms, here the spine is curved back, the head and the arms are back, right? But now here the spine is starting to curve the other way. So you see here the butt, and the bottom of the spine are starting to curve the other way, but the chest and the head and the arms are still back. So it's like the lower body is driving this motion, right? So then all of a sudden the upper body, the head and the arms just pound down. If these are his hands. So like if this is the guy, his arms are back. Here his arms are still back, and then boom, they're down, right? So that's the wave principle, or the whip principle. I think it's easier to find if you look up a wave principle online. You can find videos about it and stuff. But that's the idea, and this is going to come up in another shot that we're doing. We're going to be talking about later, Ben's shot, because he does a pound like that as well. But yeah, this is a good thing to know and to learn. So really, like I said, all that's doing is delaying. You're delaying its drag, right? So you're delaying and dragging the head and the arms and the chest so that they can really pound the ground hard. Okay, and then let's finish up this shot. So here, this is just a weird thing that happens, probably an accident. You can see how his hand is off the ground here, and you can see because of the shadow, right? So just make sure his hand stays in contact with the ground this whole time, because and see how this kind of causes a weird shape with the elbow and then the arm and the hand. It's just confusing. So I would look at that and just make sure, because the hand is driving this action, right? And so first you would want the body to push towards uh, these blocks. If he's pushing these blocks forward, before he starts to move the other way, you want his body pushing towards the blocks, because then when he pushes the blocks, then his body goes the other way, right? And Newton's third law of motion is, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Um, and so, but you need the force from your arm. If you're thinking about where's the force coming from, the force, he's pushing himself with his hand on the ground to help him push into the block, and then he's using the force of his legs to push off of it, right? And so we're missing the first one, where he's using his arm to push him forward, which it would be more of a straight. It's like, so we might need a bend and then a straight on the arm to show he's pushing himself towards the blocks, and then his legs are going bend to a straight to push the blocks away, right? So let's just watch this one more time now that we've seen these notes. Right? Cool. All right, Alan, hope that helps. Yeah, and have fun with that shot. It's an awesome shot. Cool. I'm going to move on to Ben's shot now. Ben's right here. He's got this cool... how do I hide this? All right. Sorry, it's got to load. He's got this cool, like, orc, like, character. Of course, it's taking forever to load. Let's try again. I had it all preset. There we go. Yeah, I don't know. This window's not going away. That's fine. All right. I mean, this looks awesome, right? You got this big guy, and he's swinging this heavy rock tool. And I love the stuff on the ground coming up, the rocks coming out of the ground. That really helps sell the idea, right? So there's things that we can do to just push this even further. And again, a lot of this has to do with some of the posts that I've posted recently, especially with that gap and spacing. So like when he's swinging right here, there's at least one pose we can get rid of, just so that he can fly through that a little bit faster. I know he's kind of a big guy, so he moves slower. So you don't want too big of a gap, because then it'll feel like he's like really light and crazy and stuff. Because you still want him to feel heavy, and that the rock thing is heavy. Because even though he's strong, that gravity still holds on to this heavy rock tool, right? So I would get rid of maybe this frame, because he's slowing into that. You see how this frame is pretty close to this one? If we got rid of this frame here, it would probably just feel better, right? And then since he's so heavy, if somebody that's heavy, their feet don't want to stay off the ground that long, and that really helps that feel like, they kind of drag their feet and then plop it down on the ground. So I would, since there's going to be one less frame here too, it'll be quicker for his foot to get over. I would probably lose some of these frames of the foot slowly coming down, right? Especially because actually his weight would be on this foot. So you always have to think about where his weight would be. And I don't know if you had reference for this or not, but if he's holding, I know the weight's on the ground right now, but he has the weight over on his left. He would fall over if all his weight was on that. It does help that the weight's on the ground, but I would, just to compensate, your body would move a little bit more towards this foot. So if that foot hits the ground sooner, his weight can kind of go over to that foot, which then helps in this transition too, because the weight goes over that foot here anyway. So like if you're ever holding something heavy behind you, your weight is going to go in front of your feet. It's going to go forward to help compensate so you don't fall backwards, right? So his weight here, and you do it right here pretty much, whereas weight is forward. You might even exaggerate it a little bit more. So we have that reverse C. But yeah, but like I said, if his weight is already on that right foot here, then his weight can shift over and be even a little bit more in front. So he can really get a good reverse C. And then, so the same thing with this ground pound. He kind of eases into it. Just get rid of this pose here. He can just go right from up here to there. I know, and you're probably wondering, well, what about the arc? We'll try it. I'll go into your Maya file, and we'll just try getting rid of that pose and see what it looks like. A lot of times, if you've already set up the path of an arc, you don't need, like, your brain fills in the blanks. It's kind of like if you ever watch Brain Games, they have things like that where your brain kind of fills in the gaps as long as you recognize what's happening ahead of time. If information is missing, since you're so used to seeing something, your brain automatically fills it in and you don't even know it. So it might be okay just getting rid of this frame, since if we set up an arc well right before it, and it's just boom, 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 right? And I would, even though it's a very heavy rock, I would make it bounce just once, just so we can feel that. So it's like boom, right? And like just over one frame. It doesn't have to be, like bounce, like a bouncing ball. It's a rock, so it would just, as soon as it hits the ground, just have it go down, up, down, and that's enough. Just so it doesn't just plant into the ground. It would be good just to see one bounce. And I'll try that in your Maya file too. But yeah, let's get what we were talking about the wave principle. We would need a shot. You know what? That might be good right here on this pose, instead of getting rid of it here. Since you already have this here, what we could do is just increase the spacing. Instead of getting rid of this pose, you can do the S curve on this one, right? Since we have a C curve, we should hold the reverse C this entire time, even here, right? Even right before it, reverse C, and keep the arms back. Let's really push this feeling. He's really winding up before he snaps it down. So then we have an S where his arms are back, and the tool is still over his head, and then pound, it's down, and he's got this C curve, right? And then you kind of ease into it, which is good. So it's kind of like an overshoot and then a settle. So that's really nice what you have in his body here after it hits the ground. It hits the C curve, goes past the point, and then comes back. So that's great. Another thing to think about, it might be difficult to see in this instance, when your arms are back with the heavy weight, your weight is forward on your body. And then as soon as you pull it down, your weight, the weight of your hips goes back, actually. So it's kind of the opposite of what you think would happen. So like here you have his weight is kind of back, and then his weight is forward. It would actually be the opposite, where the weight is forward and then it kicks back. His hips would actually go back in space to compensate for the weight going forward. and probably just for a little bit because it happens so fast. His weight would go back, and then maybe it would almost be like an overshoot and settle right back. So, yeah, let's open up your Maya file and let's just try some of these things. I don't know how this is going to go, so little experiment. So here is Ben's Maya file. Cool. And let's just see if we take some of my notes. There's a few things I wanted to try. So like this swing. Here's another thing I didn't mention is the weight. Remember where I said the weight? Your weight of your hips, your cog. It's called cog because that's center of gravity. Your hips are always trying to keep you in balance, right? And so where your hips are is usually where your weight is over your feet. And so if he's reaching back here, his weight would, since this weight is heavy, his hips need to be more over this foot here, right? And so so it would probably be something like this, whereas weight is still more over this foot and he's reaching back, right? And then when he thrusts forward, his weight is actually going to go back for a little bit to compensate for that weight going forward, right? So before I get to that though, I just want to see what it looks like if we cut out a frame. So let's just see what this looks like. Let's go back to his shot and we'll look at this swing. And let's remember what this looks like the way it is. Right? And then let's see which frame I said to get rid of. So that one. Let's see if we can find that in Maya. It's that pose. That one right there. So I'm going to select all, and actually I'm going to make a, I've got Animbot open where I can make some controls. So I just made an all control. So like if you've never used Animbot, especially these select sets here, you click on this guy and it brings up, you can make all these different select sets. So if you don't have a picker, so I don't have a picker for this guy, so I can just pick myself different things and set them to these buttons. So now if I click this button, it selects everything, right? And I've got one for the body, the cog, the chest. Right now I've got one for each hand and the hand-driven prop. So, all right. So I've got them all selected. So if I want to get rid of one frame, here's what I'll do, because this whole shot isn't baked on ones. So you have to make sure if you're going to cut a shot or cut a frame, it's not going to mess up things around it, right? And so what we'll do is we'll hit S on this frame. If you do Alt, you know how the comma and period keys go back and forth between keys. If you hold down Alt while you do comma and period, it only moves forward one frame, and it doesn't forward or backwards, and it doesn't have to. There don't need to be keys there. It just moves forward and backwards one frame. So Alt back, I'll put a key here, and Alt forward. So now all three of these frames have keys on every single control, right? So that way I kind of bookended the frame that I'm going to delete. So 61 we're deleting. So now I can right click 61, delete. But now I need to grab everything after that and move it back one frame. And this is where Animbot is helpful too. So I can shift select all these keys, and Animbot has these arrows here, and you can set how many frames you want to move things. I'm just going to move it all back one frame, right? And so now I have a new 61, which is just skipping that one frame that we had before, right? So let's play blast this and see if that feels, let's see if that feels any better than what we had before. And this is something you can do a lot when you're looking at the timing of your work, and it doesn't matter how far into it you are. You can always go back and just delete a frame or two. But now we can see, you see how we're not missing anything. you know, but it feels a little faster through that swing, right? We might even get away with removing another frame if we want, but let's compare that to what we had before. So we have this, and then we have what, cutting out a frame. Oh, that was a play blast. Where's my play blast? So you see that? See how it wasn't even necessary to have that frame. So I'm just going to experiment and see if maybe we don't even need this frame either. So frame 62. So we're going to make sure everything's selected. We're going to bookend it. So I'm keying all, keying all, keying all. We're going to get rid of, wait, was it 62? Yeah. Actually, let's get rid of 61 now. Yeah. Keying all. Let's get rid of this one. Select all these. Push them back a frame. Oops. Yeah, so then it's going to be a big snap right in the middle. We're going to play blast that and see the difference. It might be too much. I don't know. But it's okay to play around like this. You know, you can always undo. You can always save as a different version. Go in and save it as a different version so you can go back if you need to. Don't be afraid to mess things up. I mean, if you're always animating scared, it's not going to look good. So you see that we're not even missing that frame either. You see how you can really feel like he's swinging hard. Boom. And it doesn't look like we're missing anything. It doesn't look like we're missing any information. But I took out 2 frames from this swing, right? And look at that gap right there to there. That's what we did. Because we have a setup, we can put a gap there, and then we have ease at the end here. So you don't even notice that gap, right? But you feel that club swinging around, right? Your brain fills in the gap there. And so let's compare that to what we had before. Right, that was his. And then I already closed it. Sweet. All right, so there's that spot. You know, and we could also play around with the weight. I might do that just for a little bit here. And we can do this in the graph editor, so you don't have to do it frame by frame. But I'm like, which curve is this? I want to go left and right on the screen, right? And so I look down here and it looks like it's Z. The Z is left and right. So I can go translate Z. We can highlight this area and hit F. So it kind of zooms in, it focuses on that area. And we can see kind of what his body's doing here, right? And so, a lot of times I'll just grab it and move it one way or the other so I know which way is which. So up is right, down is left, right? So what I would do is when he's leaning back, I want his weight more over here. So probably this whole time. And then if sometimes the curves mess up like this when you're inserting curves, you can just highlight them and hit D, and it what that does is it applies auto tangent to them. So we can just go, now I want his weight, as soon as this is pushing through, I want his weight to push back, right? Not forward. And so I want to actually go the opposite way. Not too far. So right now it's kind of a straight line. So let's still keep it moving forward here. And it's kind of, you're just messing around with it, because you do lead with your when you're doing a motion like that, you lead with your hips forward and then you push them back, right? Almost all of your swinging motions start with your hips. If you watch golfers, I'm into golf a lot. The reason why they have so much power is because everything is driven by their hips first. And so then their upper body and their arms are like a whip that come through afterwards. But the hips are driving everything. So they move their hips forward first. They twist their hips first. And then their arms and their upper body and then their arms follow afterwards. So it's like a boom, 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 a sequenced thing. And so it acts like a whip and you get more just more power out of it. It's torque, right? And so we still want his body to move forward at first and then for it to push back. You know, and I'm not going to do it justice here in this small amount of time that we have. But hey, it looks like we got a subscriber, Barry Wookie. Awesome. Thank you so much. That is so cool. I think you're my first subscriber. I'm gonna cry. Yeah, so the general idea is that the body would move back, maybe not too much, but it would move back. And you can use Animbot's ease tool to kind of mess around with things. So yeah, I'm messing it up, but that's the general idea. If I had more time, I would tweak this and finesse it and stuff like that. But that's a lot of work. I'm gonna undo it, all this right now. But just so you know, like, watch some video of like maybe people swinging an axe. That'd probably be a good thing to look at. Find reference. Always have reference. And I would say get used to putting reference on your screen as an image sequence. You know, like from your camera, if you go to view, hopefully you guys can see this. It's underneath the chats, I think. But here, let me do it like this. So like in the window, here, I'll pick a 2. All right, so you guys see in this window over here, if you go to view, you come down to image plane, you can import an image sequence or you can import a movie file. So if you have like some video reference you want to bring into your shot, this is how you can import them. And what it'll do is it will create an image plane that you can move around on the screen and manipulate. And that way you can watch your reference, and you can even offset it. There's an offset setting. So let's say you want the frames to line up from your video to line up with your animation. You can change the offset on the video to line up with your animation so you can watch it in real time. So you're looking at the reference at the same time you're watching your animation. That helps a lot because then, especially with body mechanics, you can see what are his hips doing. All right, his hips are forward and then they kick back a little through this swing, right? Let's try, before we move on to the next shot, I know we're running out of time. Let's work with this ground pound, right? So because remember we had the wave principle, reverse C, S, and then C. So and we were saying maybe use this pose to get the S, you know, which you almost already have in the spine. You're already doing that. It's just the arms didn't follow, right? And so we might be able to just grab, I forgot I had them here. I might not need to grab the prop. Is this, yeah. So, no, maybe I do need to grab the prop too. It's constrained to one of the hands, I think. Sorry. Just gotta see how he has this set up. All right, so it's constrained to this one hand. Perfect. All right, so what we can do is keep his arms back on this pose, right? So let's take arm up, back, rotate, be up over his head. You know, you always want to check in perspective too and make sure. Oh, that was Oops, I just messed up the camera view. I didn't know you were using perspective as your camera view, or as my camera view. So what we'll do is just make a new perspective. So go to new. So then I can look in the perspective on this left window and then see my camera view over here, right? So we were looking at this shot here, this frame, because it might look good from the camera view. Sorry, got some itches here. Might look good from the camera view, but if you look at it from straight on from the front, it's like not following the arc, right? And so you want to make sure it works from every view. And this is something you guys just got to get used to. So it's coming through, but then all of a sudden you see how it angles there. And that's the hand. So I want this to line up. And I'll grab the other hand later. So I want that to follow the arc, right? It's not going to be perfect right now because I don't have a lot of time. But you always want to check in perspective your work. But now you see we've got this bigger gap right in there. We could probably push it even more, actually, now that I look at it as I'm flipping through. Yeah. So we come from here. This guy can be pushed back too. Let's adjust this one. See, I'm just flipping through to see. So especially this, you see how his body goes forward, and now the weight, the tool hangs backwards, and you can see this separation. His head is back here, and now his head is there. That will help with this swing feel really big. I don't want the elbow, the PV. There. So it's like we're coming here, here, and then down. Here, here, and then down. And you got that huge gap right there. And what we can do is further emphasize the S. Actually, let's use the cog. Let's see what the cog is doing here. Yeah, the PV joint is gonna on his elbow. I'll fix that in a second. So what we can do is maybe take this cog up before it goes down. So like as he's swinging down, he's pushing up and then coming down, right? So and then maybe even up here. Yeah, so then he falls after. So that you always want to sequence things, right? And so the weight hits the ground and then his hips come down. And then I would probably even have him come down again on the next frame. Oh, it's not. I'm not going frame by frame. Sorry. Let me go frame by frame. There. So you see how I delayed the hips, right? So his hips are up here. Hips are still kind of up. The weight hits the ground. Hips are still up, and then they come down here. So you're always looking for ways to delay things. Even his head on this pose can be delayed. And even the chest to get more of an S curve. And then it kind of gets delayed. Let's see how that looks. That might pop. No, that looks pretty good. Cool. Let's ignore the other hand, the red hand for now, and we can play blast that. And I know I said to add a bounce too. Maybe I can try that real quick too. I know I need to get to one more shot. There's one more shot to talk about today. But you see that? Boom. So what you do is you're holding back the weight longer and then pounding it down. And then you can really feel that. Boom. And especially if you keep that S curve before he goes into a C. Boom. 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 And we're not really missing this information from here to here. Look at that. That's the gap. But because we set it up well beforehand, your brain thinks you're seeing it. It looks like he's swinging it forward, right? I can still see that arc somehow. So that's what's happening there. So I would definitely do that. You know, obviously make this hand stay on there. On Animbot, there's a tool called Xform Relationships, and maybe that's something I could do a demo on another day. I don't have time right now, but you could just, you know, instead of setting up a second constraint on the tool, you want this arm to just stay, this hand to just stay on the tool just for a certain frame range. You can just do Xform Relationship. So you keep it, you put the hand on there, and when you turn on Xform Relationship, it will keep that relationship between the hand and the tool all the way until you turn it off, right? And so it's kind of like using a constraint. And so it can kind of just follow that. And what it'll do is you'll say, I want it to follow just for these frames. And then it'll bake down on ones. It can bake down on ones that hand. So instead of you having to go in frame by frame and putting the hand on the weight or setting up some crazy constraint system, double constraint system, Xform Relationship, bake it down on ones just for that section. And then you're good to go. But yeah, let's try adding a bounce real quick just to see what it looks like. Because I know you might be thinking, well, it's so heavy, it doesn't need to bounce. Sometimes just adding a slight bounce still helps sell weight. Like if you dropped a bowling ball, it doesn't just hit the ground and stop. It'll bounce. You know, well, bowling ball, depending on how heavy it is, it'll bounce a couple times. So let's say like if there was a cannonball, right? It still would probably bounce at least slightly, hit the ground. It's not, unless it completely breaks through the ground, which I know is what you're trying to do here. He's breaking through the ground. But let's just try it. Like I said, don't be afraid. If you're a scared animator, it's not likely you'll be a good animator. And I have to fight that a lot. I'm scared all the time. So, all right, it hits the ground. Let's just right away on one frame. We'll bring it up. Oops, not that much. Maybe even if we just rotate it up. Translate it up. Let's see. Then I can just copy this, put it right back down where it was. So it's just that quick. It looks like it did 2 bounces. Oh, from this to that. It's because of the angle. Let's just see what that looked like. I mean, all I did was add an up pose and then a back down pose. That might be too much, too many bounces. I'd really like to just see one bounce there, but yeah, that's probably too much. It kind of looks like vibrating, right? Boom. I mean, it still feels heavy, right? But anyways, if I had time, I'd massage that and try to make that work better. But I got to get on to the next shot. So hopefully that helps. Actually, there's one more thing I just thought of. And I'm sorry, Yulia, I'll get to your shot. One more thing I thought of right as he's doing that I really wanted to show you guys. Look at his the red foot here, right? it's just kind of planted there because it's IK. It's very static. And during this whole motion, I mean, he's very active, and we want some sort of motion on this foot. And it's really simple. I want to show you. You can just add some slight rotations to the ankle. I think it's ankle Z. Yeah, you see how this ankle can kind of go like that? We're just going to go through his keys here. And as he's reaching back, you can kind of have his foot move that way. And then as he comes this way, you have the foot go the other way, just slightly, just to keep that foot alive, right? And so you see that, and then we're just going to keep it slight. So I mean, just subtle enough. Let's turn off. Actually, here, I'll just play blast it and we can see it. And you see it just really quickly. I added some subtle twists of the ankle. You know, even though that foot is solid on the ground, I want it to still feel alive and not just a block, you know, that's stuck. So if you'll see in here, I should have turned off the controls. But anyways, you can see how the foot is, you can see the mass changing as he's moving through here, right? So that'd be something to play around with. And that's more of a polish thing for sure. If you're still considering this blocking and all that, then don't worry about that yet. Don't do that too early on. This would be more, it's fine to let the blocks stay, you know, stuck to the ground while you're figuring out all the other motion. But at the end, when you're polishing, you want to add in these little details like that and stuff like that. But anyways, great job, Ben. That's a great shot. That's a lot of fun. And now we're going to move on to Yulia. Awesome. So this is a fun shot. We'll just watch it.
Fine day, Sunday. In my opinion, best day of the week.
I love it.
Fine day, Sunday. In my opinion, best day of the week.
I think we can all relate to that, right? Hey, wait, I'm looking back. We got some subscribers. We got first time chat. Najim Manor. Hello. Good to see you. Awesome. Let's see here. My main things about this shot, Yulia, this is great. It's so entertaining and everybody can relate to it and it's fun and you've got some cute little poses on his face and stuff. Main thing is there's too much going on. You got too many great ideas. We want to simplify, right? And you always need to be thinking about what the character's thinking and what's the simplest way to portray that, right? Najim saw this one on LinkedIn. Awesome. Yeah, this shot. And it's a fun shot and everybody can relate to it, which is so cool. But yeah, like the eye darts, there's way too many eye darts, right?
Fine day, Sunday.
He's just eye darting all over.
In my opinion, best day of the week.
So I would choose your spots for eye darts, right? And eye darts always have a reason. If he's thinking about something, if he's nervous, if he was like really nervous, he'd be like, maybe the eyes are shifting all over the place. But right now he's not nervous. He's relaxed, right? And so he could just, maybe he's scoping around, making sure nobody, it's like, I'm looking around seeing nobody's here. You know, it's like just kind of looking around. But for a phrase, fine day Sunday, right? Is that what he says?
Fine day, Sunday.
Fine day Sunday. Pick a direction that he's going to look. So I'm thinking maybe this up and to the left. Maybe he eye darts within that area a little bit. You know, like fine day Sunday. For that phrase. And then for this phrase, because this is nice how he tilts his head the way that he's looking, right? Eyes up into screen right. He tilts his head with it, in my opinion. Here, let's hit play.
In my opinion, best day of the week.
And that look to the TV for best day of the week is good too. So the eyes from here on
In my opinion,
are good, right? It's just all these eye darts before then. You gotta simplify it. And I would say maybe up and to the left, because in my opinion, it's up and to the right, up and screen right. So find something that's not in that area. Save that area of his eyes for this section. So you can use any other direction for over here, right? You can have him maybe take one glance to the right and then back to the left again. But I wouldn't keep it so busy, you know, and then especially right here, he goes back to the screen right again. Just keep it up to the left. There's also way too much happening with the brows. So again, just pick the ones that are communicating what you want to communicate. So let's watch it again and watch the brows.
Fine day, Sunday. In my opinion, best day of the week.
So there's just too much happening. We don't need all that, right? And so the beginning is like a sigh, right? So, and you can ease you see the screen right brow is kind of stuck here and then it goes up. Kind of keep those moving together. And like you have here, something to think about when you're working with brows and eyelids, upper eyelids. They usually kind of work together, not exactly in the same proportions. The brows can move further than the upper lids, right? So it's like it could be, but the upper lids are going up too, and you kind of have that here. See how the upper lid is going up, and so is the brow, which is good. So it's because when you bring your brows up, you're stretching your upper lids up, right? But then you bring the lids down, but the brows are still up and dragging a little bit too much, right? So I would just find a way to keep that working together. Maybe leave the eyes open longer and then bring them down for this part of the sigh. And then leave, like this is great how you have the brows furrowed here and you can see the scrunch. It's like if you have a good brow pose, leave it there for a while so we can, so we can enjoy it. So leave it down. It's like all this in here, I'm not exactly sure what's happening. You know, there always needs to be a reason for the brows to move, and the less, the better. So yeah, you can, like what you have here, kind of a anticipation for fine, up and then down, fine day, stay down until Sunday, then come back up, right? So hang on a pose for a while, especially if it looks good. And that was something I struggled with a lot at the beginning, because you feel like they say you want to keep alive the whole time, right? Hey, I missed the Wild Gamer here said hey a while back. Sorry about that. I missed you. I haven't been looking at the chat. Sorry guys. But that was something I struggled with a lot too, is because you're being told keep alive, right? Keep the character alive. And so you don't want to keep them stuck in a pose for too long. But if you don't keep them stuck in a pose for too long, you can't read it and you can't enjoy it, right? And so I'm watching his eyebrows and I have no idea what's happening in his head. I can't feel it. So find those poses, think it's a sigh. So it's, I have an anticipation and I have a big breath and then a release down, right? And then it's just going to stay there until the next thought. And fine day, anticipation, fine day Sunday. So it could be fine day Sunday, right? It's different thoughts. It's not fine day Sunday. It's not the Home Alone kid made my family disappear. I don't know if you can see that with my hat on. I can't do it, but anyway, it'd be great if that GIF was around. You guys could make that GIF show up. Fine day Sunday, and then this This pose here, let's go to the Maya file. And I'll just show you like with the brows. So, hey, got a new follower. Awesome, thank you. I know we only got a few minutes left too, guys, but if you see on this Maya file, you see these inner brows are moving kind of crazy too, right? You see all that? Yeah, I mean, if those inner brows are moving by themselves a lot, that's just too confusing. Simplify, simplify, simplify. So this pose, when he's kind of gleeful, I can kind of see what you're going for. You're going for just like this squeeze type of face, right? Which is good, and it's good. You kind of got this reverse C, this U shape, right? Make sure the outers aren't up too high for that. Your outer brow, your outer brows, the outer part here. Most of your motion is coming from your inners. Most of what you do, and your outers kind of follow. And so the only way that's not true is like when you're doing like an angry pose and the outers are up and the inners are down. But make sure that those outers aren't up too high. So they were up here, but go ahead and bring them down here. You know, you can get a U shape where the outers are down. Outers are down, center is down. So it's the inners that are up there, right? And grab the inner brows. So you have something like that. And that's way better than if you have the outers up. Oops, I grabbed the wrong thing. Like that. I mean, we just can't make that shape with our faces. It looks odd, right? And so keep those outers down for this type of shape. But yeah. Another thing I would do, since I know it's after 8 o'clock, we got to be done, is at the end here, his legs that are dangling, let's have him dangle. I would grab the knees. So before he does this jump up, let's make sure his knees are down more. Gravity's going to bring his legs down, right? So they're not sticking up in the air yet. And that gives us more contrast. So like on this pose too. So let's see what that looks like. See, and so they're down. They start to come up. Hey, new follower. Awesome. Thank you. So they're down. They start to come up here and then pop, right? And we could probably even bring them down a little bit more here so we can feel that pop more. So it's like, so let's play blast that ending. Contrast is what you're always looking for, right? So if you really want to feel those legs popping out, that means the pose before they need to be bent to straight. So if there's the thing that you want to show is a straight, before it you need a bend so that it bend to straight. Or if the thing you want to show is a bend, before it you need a straight, right? So always be thinking about how to use straights and bends together. So you see how now, boom. Because his legs are bent more before the straight, you feel it. Right? And then watch this hand in silhouette. It's kind of lost in the arm there. I would maybe find a different way to show that hand so that you can still see it. But yeah, this is awesome. It's such a fun shot. Please keep going with it. Yulia, that's great. I'm just going to look in the chat real quick, make sure I didn't miss anything. Nakim says, my supervisor told me about eyelid. Don't touch pupil, the center area. Yeah, if the eyelids come down too close to the black part, like say this. See where the eyelid is is touching and is cutting off the black part there. Makes you look tired, sleepy, or stoned or something, like you're on something. So usually you want to make sure the lids are not cutting into that black part of your eye, unless it's for a reason. If you want them to look, tired or whatever, that's fine.
In my opinion,
but yeah, and then keep the lids moving with the brows as well. Make sure those are connected. And you said during an eye dart. Yeah. Some people can't move their brows during shooting reference. How should they do it? Do you mean like if you have trouble moving your brows, then find someone that can move their brows, if that's your question. Because I know different people have different dexterity with their brows. Like I can't get that sad pose where the inners are up and it's just that curved up pose. I try really hard to do that with my brows, and I can't do it. But maybe I can find someone else that can, because everybody's faces work differently, right? And so have someone else shoot your reference for that part. Just video them doing a face that can help you out, right? So it doesn't always have to be you doing your reference, and that's always a fun thing to try anyways, just asking someone, hey, can you do some reference for this, so you can get someone else's idea, and maybe you won't use exactly what they're doing, but you might get some ideas for what to use that you never would have thought of. So they move both at the same time, single brow when they move. Oh yeah. Are you talking about like the character? If the character has that, if it's a single brow, you can still get shapes, right? So you would, like, if you wanted that, I'm trying to think of, I know there are characters like that where there's, Mike Wazowski, right? I think he just has the one brow. So look him up and see how they get expressions out of his brow. There's ways to get the curves to make it simulate like he has two brows, but he just has the one. Right. But guys, I got to get going. Thank you for joining us today. Hopefully this was helpful. Let me know if you want to do this again sometime. Sorry, I'll be better about announcing when I chose the shots. I announced it on Twitter, but I forgot to announce it on LinkedIn and Instagram and stuff. So, please, when you submit for this, next time I do it, send me a direct message, a DM. So that's what I put in the post. DM me your Sync Sketch link. Don't just post it in the comments, because it's easy for me when I'm going back and forth between Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram for me to just go to my private messages and hit those. If I have to search through posts and find links and all that kind of stuff, it's so difficult. So just DM me your links, and then that will help me out so much. All right. So I'm not sure what we're going to do next week. I'll put up a post. We might do this again next week, or I might go back into some facial animation. I love your guys' feedback. So anytime you guys want to send me a message, just go ahead and send me a message. Let me know what you'd like to see. This is all for you. So anyways, hope you guys had fun, and we'll see you next time.